All right, a little bit about myself. I spent 9 years in the Air Force and studied electronics and did ground-based aircraft navigation. Basically the navigation for the aircraft that's at the airport, and that would be instrument landing and airport location relative to the aircraft. So I did that. It was a highly technical area, and that made me a detailed reader and a very specific reader. I don't read really for enjoyment, I read to learn things. So I got out of the military after 9 years and started working at a big company. I won't mention who they are, but it was a big company. I spent close to 15 years working for them. Started my apprenticeship as a electrical controls, industrial controls technician. And worked my way up as a maintenance supervisor. And that company was very good to me. I learned a lot. However, after 5 years of 70 and 80-hour work weeks, for reasons of work-life balance, I left that job. And looks like there's a little bit of a mess there. Left that job and started working at another company. And get that cleaned up there, you know, you don't want soda on your work surfaces. So I worked there for about 4 years, but it was a small facility and they shut it down. And so they were very good. They gave me a good severance package. They treated us really well when they closed the factory down. So then I tried to start this business up and actually do it full time. I ran that business for about 18 months, salvaging out a lot of full-size Jeeps, selling parts to everybody. Sold parts to Europe. Surprisingly, Europe has a really big military Jeep fan base over there, I guess because of after World War II and all the stuff that was left over there. Sold parts to China, Taiwan, basically Brazil, all over the place. Well, anyway, I ran into some issues with the internet resource that I was using to sell my parts, and they basically made it impossible for me to make a living at it. So then I got another job in industrial controls and programming with another big company. So after not being able to make enough money doing the Jeep business on its own, I decided that I needed to take and look for employment somewhere else. And you know, because that was a steady paycheck. So I got hired on again as electrical controls and programming with a new company, and I'm not going to mention their name, but what's this? But I will say though that being a prime member is definitely worth the little bit of money that they ask. So that's more about my work history. I've basically learned how to weld and do light metal fabrication. I love building Jeep parts. I see something that I would like to see on my Jeeps, and immediately I'm thinking to myself, okay, how can I build this and make it available for my friends? So every time I look at a project, I'm looking at it on how to make it available. The other thing that we'd like to do is we don't want to be just a technical video. We want to be informative and entertaining. And we're going to try to do that by taking the current day-to-day narratives, and obviously I'm not going to address narratives that I agree with because that's too easy. I'm going to address narratives, political points of view, etc., that I don't agree with, and I'm not going to be judgmental, but I'm going to discuss them in a reasonable and friendly way. And so that way, you know, some of these topics that come up where you just go, that's crazy. I can't believe that this is even being discussed. I can't believe that this is a real thing. Well, we're gonna take those on, and we're going to provide information, and we're going to provide arguments for and against in order to support my Christian point of view. Also, I can't do everything myself. I can't, you know, I'll be working on the vehicles, I'll be doing introductions, I'll be discussing certain topics or introducing certain topics. However, I'm also going to have at least 2 characters that are going to be helping me. They'll be behind the camera, filming, providing tools, providing assistance, but they'll also be behind the camera filling in dead time. You know, when I'm wrenching on stuff or I'm cutting something off, they'll be filling in, discussing these topics. And so don't tune them out while you're watching the videos. Listen to what they're saying, because they're saying things that are very important. The 2 characters that we have, the first one, they're both males, they're both young, because nobody else needs another old man's point of view. That's my job. But they're both young. The first one's Anelito, and the second one is Roto. So these 2 characters will be working with me on basically every video, and they'll be handing tools, and they'll be providing information and or discussing things amongst themselves behind the camera. So pay attention to them. Also, we're going to have things in the background in the video that are not going to be pointed out. So if you're paying attention, you'll pick up on these things. There'll be things written on boards, there'll be things on t-shirts, there'll be statements and comments and things throughout the shop that aren't going to be pointed out. However, if you're keen and you're watching and paying attention, you'll pick up on it. All right, this is our shop truck. It's been in the family for quite a while. My second son, we purchased this for him as his first vehicle. In my house, when somebody wants to drive, they have to have a job and pay their own insurance. I purchase or provide the first vehicle for him at my choice, and we got a pretty sweet deal on this. We went to Kissimmee to pick it up, and the wife wasn't too happy, but I told her, I said, hey, you know, he needs something to get. They're asking $1,500 for it, or I think it was $2,500. And I told my son, I said, if it doesn't have any rust, I said, I'm willing to pay $2,000 just to get it, so it wouldn't be something that I had to do a lot of work on. Fortunately for us, it didn't start while we were there. They had to get it out of their mother-in-law's front yard, and I said, no, how about $1,200? So they gave it to me for $1,200. I found out that the reason that the engine didn't have any oil pressure was because they put a big thick cork gasket on the oil pump. We fixed that, had the transmission rebuilt, and we've been driving it ever since. So this is a really good looking vehicle. I love it. I bought it back from my son when he relocated, and now it's our project vehicle and our shop truck. So you can see the only body work that we had to do was on the rear window area. We had a couple cancer spots there, so that was the first thing that we fixed. When we got it, the guy had been four-wheeling it and he'd caved in 3 out of the 4 corners on it, so we had to replace the front fenders, and we had to take and put a rear corner on it. So we did that, painted it, got it looking good in color copper, and then we went four-wheeling, and my son and I, mostly my son, ended up hitting 2 out of the 3 corners that we repaired. So that's why we got the blue fenders on there now. But we plan on giving this a new coat of paint, getting it looking good, and like I said, it'll be our project vehicle. So the air conditioner in the heat makes a big difference. Getting close to having the interior done. I got to get the seats redone. I got to get the headliner redone. But we also put a sequential shifter, B&M shifter in there. I like it. However, if you purchase one, you don't need to get the truck version, which is a little bit higher. Actually, this sets pretty well without the truck version. This is the truck version. It's a little bit higher than I'd like, so I would recommend that you get the non-truck version, and it'll sit a little bit lower. Something else that I didn't tell you before, but if you notice the large tires on there, funny thing is that when we bought the vehicle, you know, my son was basically a student in high school, so he couldn't afford large tires or a large expense. And at the time, the H2 or the Hummer 2 tires and wheels, the BFGs, were readily available because everybody was buying these vehicles, and then the first thing that they would do is they would swap out the 17-inch rims, 35-inch tires with a set of 20s or 22s. So there were plenty of them on Craigslist. So we went through one set of those tires over a period of years, and then we were lucky enough to get another set. However, the set had almost 100% tread still on them. However, they were old. So anyway, my son's driving this vehicle around, and everything's going just fine. And then one day he calls me on his phone, and he's not able to make it to work because his tire went flat. Well, I get over there to help him out, find out that the tire just didn't go flat. The tread actually separated from the sidewall all the way around, 360 degrees. And so basically the whole tread just rolled off the tire, instantly went flat. The good thing is he was already going slow, so he just pulled into a side street, and he was able to stop. There wasn't any issues. However, later, after we got him home, you know, I'm concerned about the expense of getting 4 new 35-inch tires. And I told him, I said, son, I said, you know, I said, that's going to be expensive. It could be anywhere from, you know, $500 to $800 to get another set of tires that big. And I said, you might want to look at downsizing, you know, maybe go to a something smaller, like a 33, and you know what he said? You know what? You know what he said to me? He said, Dad, you don't go smaller, you always go bigger. And at that time, I I was so proud of them, you know, all those times that I was talking to them and giving them advice, and you don't know if they're listening or not, and you know, and then years later it comes back to you, because I'd always taught them, go big or go home. I was so proud of them at that time. Just want you to know that your kids are listening to you when you're talking, and it was a good thing. It was a big reward for me to know that my influence had worn off on him, or I should say that I was able to influence him as a young man.